Hey guys, Maniac with GameAccess.net doing my next site podcast. And we're keeping with the old school themes, and I don't think you can get much more old school than this. What this subject is going to be is we're going to be talking about Quake for the PC. Quake has been released on multiple platforms across the years, but for the most part it's on PC. There have been, I believe, 7 Quake games released to date. 4 major ones. One expansion pack, one official expansion pack, I should say. One spin-off game, and Quake Live. As far as I know, that was pretty much it. Now, I know there were probably, I think, other expansion packs made. I think there were at least 2 expansion packs made for Quake 2. But for the most part, that was pretty much it. As per the tradition in these things, I usually start out, what was my first exposure to the platform? And I guess you would say my first exposure came from the Unknown Camera Person. Because I got my first system in 1996 for Christmas. It was a 133 megahertz system, no 3D acceleration, about a gig of hard drive space. But it could run pretty much anything I threw at it. It could run... I remember playing all these kind of games on it. In fact, I remembered when I got it, they gave me a CD with like 100 or so shareware games on it. You know, all different kinds of shareware stuff. Everything ranging from Wolfenstein to, Commander Keen and stuff like that. And I remembered talking with some of my peers about this, and the Unknown Camera Person said to me, "Yeah, but did you play Quake?" Now, Quake is probably one of the seminal games in video game history, at least the original Quake, I mean. It was developed by pretty much the company that practically invented video games on the PC. We had games up to that point, even multiplayer games, but this just revolutionized everything. What can I say about Quake? About that first Quake game? Well, I'm going to talk first a little bit about kind of what it brought to the table, at least for gaming in general. And then I'll talk about when I first started playing it, or what my experience was the first starting playing it. Quake was revolutionary for 2 points. One, it was the first major 3D graphics game. I mean, it wasn't the first 3D graphics game, but it was like the first 3D graphics action game, at least as far as I can remember. There were other games that were coming out by that point, many of them by id Software, where they were doing 3D games like Wolfenstein 3D or Doom 3D, but there were limitations. Particularly, like, the player couldn't jump. You really couldn't look up or down. At least I don't think you could. The player was limited mobility-wise. Like, you couldn't have a room on top of another room. And all the character models were all not 3D. Were not 3D. They were all flat textures. So you had a game that was in 3D space, but with 2D characters in it, with 2D characters populating it. And don't get me wrong, they were absolutely revolutionary for the time. But Doom was like the next step. So you had 3D characters in 3D space with full freedom of movement. You could look up and down. Granted, the first time you could really do that was probably Duke Nukem 3D, but even that had flat enemies. You had the opportunity, obviously you had the opportunity to jump. You had full online multiplayer support. There was multiplayer for Doom. You could do cooperative. You could do competitive modes, but there were limitations to when Doom came out. You could only have like 4 players. You had to play only through 2 ways. You could either be on the same local network, or you could, or you had to dial your friend up if you didn't have access to a local network or Ethernet connections. You would have to dial up your friend with your modem. You would dial up your friend's computer and play him that way. And that's really how you did it. There was really no other way. When Quake came out, not only did it come out, but all of these tools came out for users to find online Quake servers without the need of anybody posting up their information. You could just do a search and find what you were looking for, find maps that you wanted to play on this for servers that were running. You didn't need to play, you didn't need to do anything else. You didn't need to do searches, and you didn't need to run things manually. You could just run a program, pick the server you wanted, and the game would boot and you would play it. That was revolutionary. Nowadays, like you don't really, you could say, oh, I've got that, and I don't even need a third-party program to do it. It's like, yeah, well, the companies that actually put those third-party, or I should say, that framework, like all the framework that ended up in the modern games and stuff like that, is not Steam games, or not like, obviously not like Xbox Live games, but when you loaded up a PC game with its own server browser in it, that was all the GameSpy clients. Those were all the GameSpy tool sets, and they were integrated into the computers, but they were all running on the GameSpy servers, or using all the GameSpy software. GameSpy was originally designed as QuakeSpy. It was designed as a third-party program to search out servers, because there wasn't really a server browser in the original Quake. It's amazing to think that we have, like, all the stuff that we have nowadays that we kind of take for granted, all pretty much had its heyday back then. And it's awesome to think that too. I mean, when Quake was designed, it was designed to be used online, to be played in the internet. Not played local, not really played locally, not played by direct dial. And I know every game now is considered to be, it's like if it's not, if it doesn't have Xbox Live, you don't play it. If it doesn't have access to the PlayStation Network, you don't play it. If it doesn't have any kind of multiplayer, you don't play it. I get that. It's like Quake was kind of, I think, where that internet revolution started, where the internet gaming revolution started with Quake. And I will stand by that. My first experience playing Quake was actually in downloading the original shareware version. Now, id Software was still in the shareware mindset at the time. They were like the last game to really release to shareware. But Quake was released in 4 episodes. The first was shareware. Maybe it was 3 episodes. Maybe I'm wrong. Usually they are 3 episodes. If there was a 4th episode, it might have been an expansion pack. I don't remember. But it's like 3 or 4 episodes. And the first was released to shareware. I downloaded that one. I downloaded the shareware episode off of id Software servers, and there were 2 ways that you could get it. One was you could download it in like one go, or the other way was they had it split into like 8 parts, all of which were small enough to fit on a floppy disk. They were all about 1.44 megabytes. Wow, that's small, right? And you can download them in like 7 or 8 parts. And the fact that I had a dial-up service which took an hour just to download 10 megabytes. No, I am not kidding, by the way. That's how slow the internet used to be. And it was that slow for a very, very, very long time for me, actually. It was that slow for many years longer than it should have been, as far as I'm concerned. So, that all having been said, I downloaded it in parts. And over the course of a weekend or something like that, as a kid, I wrote the article about the summers and stuff like that. I knew that I used to have to pull all-nighters, not because I was up playing things, but because I need to be up. That's how long it would take for me to download stuff, for me to download content off the internet, like patches or demos and stuff like that. It would take me hours just for a simple download of maybe like 50 megabytes or something. Or 30 megabytes. That could take several hours in real time. Just for nowadays, I download 30 megabytes in a couple seconds. Certainly less than a minute. So that just goes to show you those were the days that we were living in. And so enough about the trip about nostalgia and stuff like that. I'll get to what I thought of the game. I loved it. I loved the shareware. I loved the first episode. I played the hell out of it back then. But I never got the first game, at least not at that point. I never got the original game. It had been released by GT Interactive and to CD-ROM. But I cannot remember if... I just can't. I can't remember actually getting it. At least not at that point. What had actually happened was that 1997 was at that point, it was 1997, and people were already talking about Quake 2. And that Quake 2 was going to dethrone Quake as, like, I don't know, the best game ever or something along those lines. So attention kind of focused on that. But there were still people, of course, playing Quake. Quake, of course, was huge with the mod scene. The online multiplayer helped out the mod scene tremendously. Now, I know mods have been pretty much around since the days of Castle Wolfenstein and stuff like that, and they really came into their own when Doom came out. But the mods were really starting to take off when Quake came out because of the online multiplayer and because of the advent of just, you know, you could download a mod through the internet and basically be able to play it and play the servers that were using it. So just the fact that you could actually easily get mods installed to your system, it could take all day to get several mods, but it made the job a lot easier. You know, it was just awesome to do that. And the mods really took off, and there were some great mods for that original Quake. And just to show you exactly how, you know, how, like, what levels of awesome it got to, I can remember that I used to actually go every weekend with the Unknown Camera Person and some neighbors, and I remembered going and playing Quake at the museums. There was a museum not too far from where I lived. Sorry. There's a museum not too far from where I lived where I'd, like on Fridays or Saturdays or something like that, I'd go with the Unknown Camera Person and we'd go and play Quake on their systems. They already had the computer set up. They already had the servers set up. They already had the networks already set up. And they gave us the opportunity to play Quake. And we would. And some of my best memories were those weekends where we would do that. I know it sounds goofy or silly. I know we did it more than once, probably around 2 or 3 times at least. But I can remember when the last times we played, some of the server admins decided, you know what, let's play it. Let's play something awesome. And they loaded up a Team Fortress server. Yes, Team Fortress was originally a mod for the original Quake. That's how old school it was. And I can remember playing Team Fortress. And in case you're curious what I would play, I'd play as the Pyro. Because when someone told me, play as Pyro, we need a flamethrower unit, play as the Pyro, I'd be like, flamethrower? Me? With flamethrower? Sign me up! And I played Pyro. And I had a blast, actually. I just had a total blast playing as the Pyro, and that's what we played. And I can also remember, I can't remember exactly, some of you old school guys might remember this. I can remember that we shifted to a map which kind of changed the scheme a bit. I couldn't, this was from a long time ago, so I don't know if anybody remembers this map, but I think there were only 2 teams on one spot. One was like the MIB and one was like something else. I can't remember. The MIBs were the team with the flamethrowers, and the other team had like crossbows that were 1 hit, 1 kill, but they took forever to reload. I can't remember what that mod was. All I know is that when we were playing Team Fortress, we shifted to that. So I couldn't tell you. But I played as the MIB because I was a huge fan of that movie. And I was definitely playing as the MIB. The MIB had the flamethrower. So it just lucked out. I can't remember what that mod was called because we just got to it, but if anybody can remember what that mod was for the original Quake, or what that map was, just post a comment. So Christmas 1997 comes around, and I asked for Quake 2 for Christmas. I got it. I loaded it up on my computer, and I played that game tremendously. I loved that game. That game was fun, but that game was really, really, really long. I don't think to this day I've ever actually beaten it. And to be perfectly honest, I couldn't even tell you how far I actually got in the game. Like, I was playing and playing and playing and playing, but I just couldn't remember how far I had gotten. And I remembered getting stuck. Like, I got to a point where I would just simply, I couldn't progress. I don't know why, but this was back before walkthroughs were really around, and even then, I wouldn't have been able to just simply look up a walkthrough and figure out where to go. I probably could have bought a book, but I think by that point, the books were no longer on sale, or they had sold out, or whatever. So I couldn't find a hint guide. But I don't know. I just couldn't. I just got to a point where I got stuck, and I didn't know where I was in the game, so I couldn't just simply look up a solution to it or to any progress any further. But maybe someday I might go back to it. So some time progresses, and and then everybody starts talking about. Actually, if I can say something else. I think what really got a lot of people interested in Quake 2 was the multiplayer. And the multiplayer was even better in Quake 2 than it was in Quake 1. And even I admit, I mean, not having played through the single player that much, having a lot of fun playing the multiplayer of that game with all kinds of, just online and everything else, as well as playing with some of the mods. Like I remember the Headhunters mod and stuff like that being just so much fun to play. Also, that's kind of like where... That's kind of like what was going on at the time. It was just a lot of fun. So, while I hadn't played through the single-player campaign, I distinctly remembered playing a lot of the multiplayer in it. And I also remembered the game was just so well, it was so well designed. It didn't really have that much of a steep system requirement, at least not for 1997. And I could play it on the same system I played Quake 1 on. Heck, I could play it on a laptop that I got later. That was probably one of the the lowest end of the hardware spectrum that you could possibly get, but it was a laptop, so there really wasn't much I could do about it. And it played Quake 2 on airplanes just fine. I remember doing that. That was a lot of fun too. So there was all that. So the games got patched, the games got repatched. I loved always downloading patches for it. The problem was that the patches would always break the save games, and I think that was another reason why why I would constantly be how do I put this? I'd constantly be losing progress in the game, is because I'd get somewhere, I'd make it past like the first act or the second act, and then I'd patch the game, and I'd lose all my progress because the save games wouldn't work anymore. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what happened. And I'd have to basically restart from scratch because my save games were no longer valid. Like, they would still be there, but you couldn't boot them anymore. You couldn't load them anymore. And so yeah, that was it. So really soon after, probably at least around 1998 or so, everyone's talking about Quake 3. Yeah, it was pretty much putting those games out pretty quickly. Like Quake 1 came out, Quake 2 came out, and Quake 1 came out in 96, Quake 2 came out in 97. I believe Quake 3 was 99. But people were already talking about it before. People were already talking about it way before 99. It's 99 release. I think people were talking about it even in 98. So after all that happened, I could remember a huge ad campaign that they were doing with like lockers and stuff like that, or a bathroom in PC Gamer magazine in around 1999 to 2000. Thinking it was a lot of, that was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. But I can remember actually in the time leading up to the Quake 3 Arena demo, thinking, awesome, 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 can't wait to play it. And then I downloaded the demo, and I booted it, and it wouldn't boot. The game system requirements had required a 3D accelerator card, which my system at the time did not have. So I couldn't play it, at least not immediately. And I was really disappointed about that. And I don't think I got a new system until at least 2000 or so. And I picked up a system with a 3D accelerator card, and I had a stack of games that I was ready to play on it, like Alien vs. Predator and stuff like that. This was back in the day when any kind of system really could run anything as long as it had those specs in there. You really could get it to work. So this system, just to show you how bad it was, it had a 500 megahertz processor, which was many times faster than my previous one. I think it had 64 megs of RAM, and it had an Intel Extreme Graphics. It wasn't much of a system, but this was back before the days of major graphics hardware revisions and stuff like that. So basically, if you had just the part itself as well as some dedicated video RAM, you were going to be okay. While things were coming out around the time, like hardware transforming lighting or the shaders were starting to come out and stuff like that, they weren't really game required. The games that required 3D accelerators usually just simply required that, 3D accelerator. So you didn't really need anything major in order to make it work. Later on, those requirements would become heavily required, but for the time, Intel Extreme Graphics was fine. By the time Doom 3 came out, it was unacceptable. But at the time, 2000, it was fine. It wouldn't be fine for much longer, but for that point, it was fine. So, some time progresses, I'm enjoying the system, and I started thinking more and more about Quake. But what really made me think about Quake a lot was when Quake the movie came out. And you're going to say, well, what was Quake the movie? Quake the movie was a shorter term of a fan film that was made by a team which I don't know if is even still around. I can't even remember what the name of the team was. But they did this short film which they called for the longest time Quake the movie, but the official title for it was Escape from the Bastille. It was a in-engine machinima film that was done using the Quake 3 engine and some of the Quake 3 models, even some of the Quake 2 models, as well as the weapons and stuff like that. And they basically told a story about Strogs being held in prison. Some of the people that were watching the prison were some of the Quake 3 models, like the Doom guy, Sarge, just a few other characters like that. And the Strog invade the Bastille because they wanted to get the general. They wanted to get the general out. And basically, the whole plot line of the short film is they had the Bastille is under huge, heavy attack, and all the people that are maintaining it just try to escape. And when you watch it, you start thinking about it like, wow, the movie is about 14 minutes long. It's really well made. I don't think they actually used the engine to do it. So I think they used 3D Studio Max and stuff like that in order to get it to, in order to animate it and stuff like that, because I don't think they used in-engine stuff. Fantastic animations, not so great voice acting, but it was pretty good. It was really good, well written, and the models and stuff like that they used it was just perfect. It was really well made. And I remembered watching it like the day it came out. I hadn't really even become aware of it until it came out, but for some odd reason I was browsing Planet Quake, and they made the announcement, oh, by the way, the movie's done. Here, download it. I think it was about 30 to 60 megabytes or something like that, which on my connection probably took, I don't know, 3-4 hours or something like that. But when I watched it, I thought, totally worth it. It was really good, and I totally recommend. I know for a fact, I just saw it on YouTube, so I know it's on YouTube. I recommend looking it up and watching it. It's called Escape from the Bastille, or it's Quake the movie. So that piqued my interest in Quake again. And at a time when the PC gaming industry was, hitting a bit of a lull, this might have been around, I don't know, 2000 or 2001 or something like that, when you basically had all these games that were coming out around 2000. And it got to a point where this was just before the next generation consoles hit. So the prices on all these new games were dropping really easily. And I remember going to like Software Etc. back before it was owned by GameStop and buying stacks and stacks of PC games, good games, just older games, for like $20 a piece, not even. And I remember I'd go with like $50 to a Software Etc. and pick up at least 3 PC games, full boxes of them, and being totally happy. I picked up games like Giant Citizen Kabuto, Messiah, what else was I picking up? A lot of the LucasArts games like X-Wing Alliance, and of course, one of the games that I would pick up, the Elite Force expansion pack, Elite Force, and one of the games I did pick up was that game, Quake 3 Arena. And I loaded it up, downloaded the patch, which I think by that point it was at its final version. I can't remember what the final version of Quake 3 Arena was. I think if I remember correctly, the final version of Quake 2 was version 3.20. I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have been 3.22 or 4. I don't remember. But I remembered getting that and just playing. And just playing the heck out of it. And if I remember correctly, at the time I thought it was probably one of the best multiplayer games ever created. And this was coming from having played and enjoyed Unreal Tournament. I liked it more than Unreal Tournament. I think it was because I liked the level design better than some of the stock maps on Unreal Tournament. Or maybe I just liked the character model. I don't know. There was just multiple reasons. Or maybe I thought the graphics were better. I don't know. But I liked Quake 3 Arena better than Unreal Tournament. At least the original Unreal Tournament. And actually, it was also one of the first Quake game that I actually beat. I actually was able to beat the campaign. In case you're curious, what character model did I always play with? Doom guy. Always played with a Doom guy. That was my guy I play with. I think by stock, I think Sarge was the guy. But honestly, I liked it, and I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I really did, and trust me, when it came down to multiplayer and landing and stuff like that. That game was a definitive game of land staples. I think the only other game that was a bigger definitive staple of lands were probably the Unreal Tournament games. But at that point, 2001, I'd be playing a lot of Quake. I'd be playing a lot of Quake 3 Arena against the unknown camera person. Let me tell you that. And by that point, also the Quake 3 Team Arena game had come out. It was an expansion pack that was released. It required Quake 3 Arena. That was also around, and I think the reason why it did that was because they were kind of in a transition after Quake 3 Arena about what to do next. And now, for those of you who are not in the know, the game that obviously followed Quake 3 Arena was Doom 3. But in the transitional period after Quake 3 Arena, basically there was some discussion about what the next project was going to be. Originally they didn't actually want to make a game called they didn't originally want to make Doom 3. They wanted to make a game called Quest, like a new property, and like almost like a role-playing game kind of thing. It was a heavy favorite, and I think the only people that didn't like it were Paul Steed and John Carmack. So there was some major talk that what was going to be going on. So because they couldn't deal it down, it basically shifted to working on Team Arena until they determined what their next major project was going to be. So they did Team Arena instead in a kind of like a transitional period. And then at the end of it, they decided to do Doom 3. And Doom 3 got announced. And of course, the rest is history. Now, by that point, Quake 3 had kind of become a staple. And then we hit kind of a dark period for the Quake games because, well, let's face it, it shifted focus to the Doom game, and for the most part, the Quake games kind of weren't coming out because it focused entirely on Doom. But there were actually other games that were coming out from other staples. It was outsourcing some of their properties to other development houses as well as the engines, and they were bringing back some of the games that hadn't been seen in quite a while. In 2003, of course, Return to Castle Wolfenstein came out, which used the Quake 3 engine. I mean, the Quake 3 engine. I mean, Quake obviously while the Doom engine was under development, and while the Doom 3 game was under development, the Quake 3 engine was actually doing fantastically, and it was actually probably one of the most popular graphics engines at that point in just all these other projects and stuff like that. So even though Quake wasn't in development, at least not yet, the Quake 3 was very easily living on in pretty much all the games that were coming out, especially Activision games and stuff like that. Elite Force used the Quake 3 engine, fantastically at that. Yeah, not just id games, but not just like Return to Castle Wolfenstein, but like other games were using it, like Soldier of Fortune 2. God, it's coming up with like all this list, and now I can't think of any off the top of my head. Of course, Elite Force 2. But needless to say, the engine was doing extremely well. It was a very high-powered engine. And it was cool to see Return to the Castle Wolfenstein come back. And in fact, actually, it brought in kind of a whole new concept behind for id Software. Because when you think about it, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, when it came out, was mostly a single-player game. I don't remember. I think it had some multiplayer, but it was limited. And then sometime down the road, it's during the development of still during development of Doom 3, there was an expansion pack released for free for Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Now, it was free for download. It was also they also ended up re-releasing the game in a box set. I think they called it like the Platinum Pack or something like that, so they did include it. But I believe, actually no, I take it back. It was a standalone game, and it was released for free. And that was, I think, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, like, Wars or something like that. Gosh. Team Arena. Or, like Team Arena or something like that. Oh, no. What was it? Enemy Territory. Return to Castle Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. And Enemy Territory was a property that was originally developed that was going to be a very large multiplayer expansion pack for Return to Castle Wolfenstein using the Quake 3 engine. It was intended to be kind of like one of those retail expansions or something like that. But for some odd reason, the developers canceled the project. Like, either it wasn't they weren't happy with it or something along those lines, and they just decided, instead of just like scrapping the game and just like burying it, they just decided, you know what, let's just release it for free. And that's exactly what they did. They made the game release for free. They didn't charge for it. They just had it up for download. Anybody could download it. It did not require Return to Castle Wolfenstein. And when Return to Castle Wolfenstein was re-released, they re-released it with copies of the game. So if you bought, like, I think the Platinum Pack of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, you'd also get the Enemy Territory Return to Castle Wolfenstein executable included in it. And that did really well. It was a multiplayer exclusive game, but it was free, so it was extremely popular right off the bat because it was extremely popular. And that used the Quake 3 engine to do well, to work. And that just was like, you know, this engine is just living on years after development. I mean, that must have been around, I don't know, 03, 04 at least, when the Enemy Territory game came out. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is actually a very good reason, which I'm going to mention later. So I know it sounds like, oh, this isn't a Wolfenstein podcast. This is a Quake podcast. But for the most part, I kind of wanted to make sure to set up Enemy Territory because we're going to be revisiting that very soon. So Doom 3 is still under development, and towards the end of Doom 3's development, it makes the announcement twofold. They make an announcement that a new Wolfenstein game is coming out, but they also make the announcement that a new Quake game is coming out. That they had licensed the Doom engine, or they should say the Doom 3 engine, to Raven. Raven, of course, was was the company that was using the Quake 3 engine for all these great games like Elite Force, Jedi Outcast. Oh God, what was the last one I'm thinking of? Soldier of Fortune 2. They had used the Quake 3 engine already, so they were like one of the best third-party id Software engine developers. And they got the Doom engine. They took the Doom engine for a spin, and they were given the license to make the fourth Quake game. And I couldn't tell you how happy I was when they made that announcement. I think they made that announcement at a Quakecon. And I'll talk about Quakecon later. That a new Quake game was coming out. So Doom 3 comes out, and obviously the reviews of it were extremely high. Fan thoughts about it are mixed, so I'm not going to really talk about Doom because this isn't a Doom podcast. But I do want to talk a bit about what was going on after that. My attention shifted towards the next Quake game. Now, for you guys who have seen some of the videos that I've shot, you'll notice that occasionally I'm wearing a Quake shirt in them. Also during that time, I finally did pick up the original CD-ROM copy of it. Don't ask me where I found it. I think I might have just found it in like a retail box store that had it was like their last copy or something like that. But I did finally get my own copy of the original Quake, and I was very happy about that. And so I finally, after some time, beat the original Quake. Like, I pretty much forced myself to go through that whole game end to end and beat it. Now, we also found out, honestly, beating that game, it was great. You know, it was great. It was exactly what I expected. Obviously how it played nowadays. Now, I was playing, I think, the WinQuake version of it because that was included in like later Quake revisions. Because it was made fully Windows compliant or close enough to being Windows compliant that you could run it in modern versions of Windows and not have it and have it be mostly stable. It didn't really crash or anything like that, but I wasn't playing the original DOS version of Quake. I was playing the Windows version, and I had a blast with it. I really did. And I beat at least the three. I beat pretty much the 3 episodes. I know I already I had played through the first episode multiple times back when it was shareware. So playing through that again, that was like no big surprise. But the second and third took a while for me to beat because those were definitely longer missions, but they were still a lot of fun. So sorry, I kind of just backtracked. But actually, while Quake 4 was in development, I did pick up finally my own copy of Quake 1. And Quake 4 was skirting up to release. In fact, actually, they announced a few things. One, that they were going to be doing 2 editions of Quake 4, and that it was going to be a launch title for the Xbox 360. Now, I had a gaming PC, so even though I don't remember if I was playing I don't remember if I had a Quake or an Xbox 360 at the time, but I knew for a fact that I was going to be getting Quake 4 on the PC. There was going to be no doubts about that. And certainly don't regret that decision, although I did later buy the Xbox version of it later on. And in fact, actually, Quake 4 has since been re-released on the Xbox 360, so you shouldn't have any problem finding it if you're looking for it. But all that aside, what was going on with Quake? Well, the game comes out, and they announced a few things. One, that it was going to be using the Doom 3 engine. 2, that it was going to be a continuation of the second Quake game, which was considered to be probably one of the the best version, or the most highest regarded version of it. It had the best single player campaign, certainly. It had the longest single player campaign. And that you're going to be playing a new guy. You're going to be part of a team, and that it was just good. And at the very end they teased, oh, by the way, you're also going to become a Scrog at the end of it. And that just left all kinds of possibilities. Like, wow, my eyes were glued to the previews for that game. I was reading pretty much every one of them as they were coming out, when they were talking about the some of the scenes, like the Scrog conversion process and stuff like that. I'm just thinking, wow, I can't wait to play this game. And the game comes out, but just around that time too, they make the announcement that, oh, by the way, this isn't going to be the last Quake game that comes out. Do you remember that Enemy Territory game that we made for Return of Castle Wolfenstein? Yeah, we're also doing it for Quake. In fact, we've improved the Doom 3 engine with a new type of version, which we're calling Mega Texture technology, which is kind of like half of the work that we're putting in, because it's going to involve like games that we're going to be working on later. And we're making an Enemy Territory game, kind of like Battlefield, and it's going to be with Quake characters, and you're going to and that. And I'm just thinking, awesome, sign me up. So I pick up Doom 4. I'm sorry, I pick up Quake 4, and it comes out on the PC in 2005, towards the end of 2005. I got a Quake shirt with the pre-order. And in case you guys are curious where that Quake shirt came from, that's where it came from. There were a few tricks to that. The cool thing about the Quake 4, I got the Quake 4 Collector's Edition, and the cool things about that were that it came with an extra disc with the full version of Quake 2 on it, as well as with some of the extra cinematics and stuff like that. All awesome. Extra cinematics meaning like behind-the-scenes documentaries and things like that. Also, it came with the game on DVD instead of CD-ROMs. They had a lot of warnings on the discs because around 2005, I don't know why, but pretty much DVD had become standard in DVD-ROM drives have pretty much become standard. Even DVD burners had pretty much become standard by 2004, 2005. And nowadays, of course, you can get a high-end DVD RAM drive for like $30 at most. So releasing a game on DVD-ROM, I don't know, for some odd reason, people just didn't have DVD drives at the time, or they were very slow to decide to release games on DVD. And if they did, they like heavily marked, oh, by the way, make sure you know that this is a DVD, this is not a CD. That also was a problem when Half-Life 2 came out when they released their collector's edition, but I really, for the life of me, don't know why. Even at that point, I'm fairly certain a DVD drive cost like $30 at the most. And they were dirt simple to replace in computers at that point. This was before the slim computers and stuff like that. So again, so obviously I'm sure some people complain because they always do, but it was not a problem for me at all. I was more than happy to pick up the DVD version of it and not have to swap discs during the installation. So all that passed aside, I played through that game entirely in one night. I could not be torn away from the game. But that's just to show you that it was very short. That it could actually be beaten in one continuous night. It was not a long game. It was nowhere near as long as Quake 2 was. It was only a couple hours long. I think I probably beat it in like 5 or 6 hours or so. The whole thing on the lowest difficulty setting. And trust me, the reason why I beat it on the lowest difficulty setting is because there really was there was really no incentive to beat it on the highest, but I beat it in one night. It did not take that long. It took me less time to beat it than some Halo games. That having been said, the whole experience was fantastic. I loved every second of it. So, take for that what you will, but I was never upset or disappointed with how good that game was, because it was fantastic. It also came with a full multiplayer client, which was the I believe it was pretty much like a Quake 3 arena type game. Fantastic also. Didn't really take off with the LAN parties and stuff like that. Most of the time, I remembered by that point everyone was really playing Unreal Tournament 3 and Unreal Tournament 2004. That pretty much was the staple of LAN parties by that point. People were playing Doom 3, mostly in LAN parties, but I can't really remember too many people playing Quake 4 during LAN parties. I just can't remember it. It just wasn't much, I just don't remember that. Later on, though, what did become a staple, 2 years later, Enemy Territory Quake Wars came out, which was, at the time, I think it was like at the height of Battlefield's popularity. Battlefield 2 had come out in, I think, 2005. It released to much fanfare. By that point, there was already talk about spin-offs like Battlefield Vietnam, Battlefield 1942 had already come out. Like Battlefield 21 something, I can't remember. Battlefield 3, obviously, that was years later. But it seemed like Quake Wars was exactly what I wanted it to be. I liked the concept behind Battlefield 2, but the concept of using like a futuristic a modern warfare or something like that interested me, but it didn't hold my attention for very long, to be perfectly honest. What did was Quake Wars. Quake Wars held my attention for a very long time, and I loved every second of playing it. I got the Quake Wars. I picked up the pre-order for Quake Wars Collector's Edition. I picked up the Quake Wars Collector's Edition. It came with trading cards, a game on disc, an extra bonus disc, all that cool stuff. Extra content, all kinds of stuff for like a $10 premium, worth every penny. To this day, I don't even think I really opened it up that much, but I remembered, I think what really sold me on it was when they did the demo for it at Quakecon 2006, I think. It might have been, yeah, when they showed it off, and that's when I saw the first map, and that was the map that was released with the demo, and you got to see for the first time exactly what you could do with this game. I was sold. And I enjoyed playing through the game tremendously. I thought it was a lot of fun. So take for that what you will. Now, I usually wrap up these games with, and of course there was the last thing, of course, I completely forgot. What does the future have to do with, what do we got in the future with Quake? Well, Quake Live is out. And I actually was responsible for beta testing Quake Live. A couple of years ago, I think this was Quakecon 2009 or so. I don't think it was Quakecon. It might have been Quakecon 2010. Quake Live was just about to hit beta test. And QuakeCon, if you've ever been, is open to the public. They have it every year. They've had it for like the last decade in Texas. It's going on right now, which is why I'm doing this podcast. It's going on right now in Texas. I've never actually been to QuakeCon before because it's in Texas, although I admit tremendously I should go. But the thing is that airfare and lodging in Texas is extremely expensive and is beyond my budget. It's actually cheaper for me to go and go to like Los Angeles, for example. Airfare to Los Angeles is actually cheaper for me, and lodging I can just stay with my friends. So it's like it's actually less, it's actually more expensive for me to stay in Texas for a week than it is for me to stay in Los Angeles for a week. But that having been said, it is free to the public, and it's totally recommended that, I totally recommend it. It's a great convention. A couple years ago, they showed Doom 3 to the public for the first time there. I believe that was, QuakeCon in 2002. John Carmack always does his keynote. There's always a bring your own computer LAN, prizes, all this kind of stuff, tournaments, competitions, and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic and awesome stuff. Major camaraderie. In fact, I remember when the QuakeCon, when Doom 3 had just come out, when they did the QuakeCon, they were talking about doing like, in the hotel rooms, the guys were doing like live action role plays of like Doom 3 and stuff, where guy would go into a bathroom, and like there was like footage of this, and they showed it on G4 when G4 was was actually a good station, and they'd show like a guy pretending to bash a guy the guy going to the bathroom armed with just a flashlight, and another guy would be in the tub to scare him, and he'd just kind of run out of the tub, come out of the tub, and he'd be like, "Whoa," and the guy would pretend to bash him with his flashlight. It was, just to show you just what kind of people go to QuakeCon. That's just awesome. That's just, it's the most diehard of diehard fans. It's like, it sounds like a great bunch, and I really wish at some point I do get a chance to go. So I signed up because I was on the fence about going around 2010, and it's no expense because, like I said, badges and identification is free. So you can sign up if you're planning on going, but and it's not going to cost you anything. And I remembered because I did sign up, it got me access to the QuakeCon forum, and also it got me I got an email for the Quake Live beta test. And I'm just thinking to myself, awesome. Totally awesome. I couldn't have been happier. And I tested out Quake Live, which was, of course, the in-browser version of Quake 3. And I was just thinking to myself, I couldn't possibly have thought of anything more fun to do. It was just so great, and I've been hearing great things about it since. I'm fairly certain that it is still free to play, although I think there's like pay options and stuff like that. But here it was. You could play the Quake 3 engine in your own browser. You could play game Quake 3. It had matchmaking. It had server browsing. It had advertising in it, and I love the beta version because the advertising in it was all for fake products. And me from like previous articles and stuff like that, I just love seeing fake product advertising in games. It's like my favorite thing. I hate seeing real product advertising, but I always love when fake products and fake movies and stuff are being advertised in games. So I remember in the advertising section they had like a fake product or something as a placeholder, and I thought that was just great. Now, what does the future hold for Quake? We don't know. We just don't know. QuakeCon is happening right now. It's still its software has been bought by Bethesda. They are publishing all of their games now. They also are entirely using the Doom and Rage, the new engines entirely in-house now. Its software had just finished Rage, which is not a Quake game. Entirely different type of game, actually. There was also work on Doom 4 going on, which is still, I think it was just recently announced that, Doom 4 is going to be done when it's done. We don't have a release date on that one yet. We're still working on it. So Doom 4 is still being in development. But there really, as far as I know, at least up to this point, there's not been any announcements of like a Quake 5 or something. Obviously, you know, Quake Live is still doing well. Happy with, you know, that's great. I mean, the earlier games can still be gotten on Steam and stuff like that. I still have my, you know, I still have my original discs. Where does the future hold for it? I think that's anyone's guess. Obviously, since Bethesda does have, you know, all the licenses of id Softwares now, they can make a Quake 5 tomorrow if they wanted to, and they can assign it to somebody other than id Software. What id is we're actually working on right now, we don't really know. It could be anything. They could have taken Doom 4 in house. They could be working on something else. We do know that the Doom BFG edition is currently under development, and id Software has been showing that off. So that could be what they're working on right now, porting Doom 3 to the new consoles. But for the most part, no talk about Quake, at least not since really Quake Live came out. But it's still called the Quakecon. They haven't changed any of that. So obviously Quake is still a very important product for id Software. And I'd be more than happy to pick up Quake 5 on whatever platform when Quake 5 comes out. You know, whoever decides to develop it, will they keep doing it? I'm sure they will. I mean, when you get a point at this point where, you know, regular licenses are getting new titles pretty much every year, and we haven't seen a new Quake game since 2006. Well, technically, technically Quake Live was the newest one, but a retail game since 2006 when Enemy Territory came out. I think the time is right for a new Quake to start development, and that's kind of like why I'm hoping for it. I honestly do, because it's a staple of LAN parties, and I really, really miss that. So I'd like to hear what you guys think. It's been great talking to you guys. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Obviously, post your comments about what you think of Quake. Don't know what I'm going to be doing next for a podcast, but I wanted to get you guys up to speed on everything. Until next time, guys, this is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Over and out. Keep on fragging. Take care.